Now, Prince William, he's finally got his way, I suppose, with King Charles bowing to pressure and exiling Prince Andrew. I think, Prince William, it appears it's a win for him, really. And I think, Andrew, it shows that Prince William holds a lot of power.
Have you ever witnessed a moment so cold, so sharp, that it changed everything in an instant? What happens when years of hidden tension finally break into the open, in front of cameras, at a royal funeral, with the whole world watching? One piercing stare.
The royal family has held its first Catholic funeral in modern history to celebrate the life of the late Duchess of Kent.
One refusal to look away, and a prince who drew a line his uncle would never cross again. The royal family has always kept its conflicts behind closed doors, but on September 16, 2025, at Westminster Cathedral, Prince Andrew crossed a boundary that shattered any hope of reconciliation. What he did next left even the strongest supporters speechless. And Prince William's response? It made history. Stay with us to uncover the shocking truth behind this story. The breaking point, when words cut deeper than silence. To truly understand what happened that day at Westminster Cathedral, we need to go back to where it all started, not with a stare, but with words spoken in the shadows. Words that cut through the royal family like a blade. According to royal insiders, Prince Andrew made a comment about Catherine, Princess of Wales, that went beyond casual gossip. It wasn't just unkind. It was loaded with jealousy, delivered at the worst possible time. Royal expert Andrew Looney revealed in his work that Andrew took aim at Catherine right after Queen Elizabeth II passed away. Imagine that. While the family was supposed to unite in grief, Andrew chose to single out the one person who had brought grace and stability to the monarchy. The comment wasn't public, but it didn't need to be. Behind palace walls, words travel fast. And when they reached Prince William, everything changed. Catherine had spent years earning respect, not through titles or birthright, but through her actions. She had become the steady hand the public trusted, the face of a modern monarchy. To hear his own uncle mock her, out of what appeared to be pure envy, was more than William could tolerate. From that moment, the distance between William and Andrew became a canyon. Whatever family bond they once shared crumbled into dust. William didn't make a public statement. He didn't need to. His silence toward Andrew spoke louder than any words ever could. But this wasn't just about one comment. This was about years of disappointment, scandal, and a refusal to accept responsibility. Andrew had once been admired. He served in the Royal Navy with honor, even saw combat in the Falklands War.
The Duke of York has used his ex-wife's Instagram account to publish a memory about his experiences of the Falklands War. Prince Andrew says the conflict had left him a changed man.
For a time, he was seen as brave, charming, even respectable. But all of that faded as his choices began to overshadow his service. The most damaging blow came from his connection to Jeffrey Epstein, a name that became synonymous with scandal and disgrace. Photographs surfaced, questions were asked, and instead of distancing himself, Andrew seemed to underestimate how serious the situation had become. Then came the interview in 2019, the one meant to clear his name. Instead, it buried him deeper. His answers lacked empathy, his explanations felt hollow, and the public reaction was brutal. By January 2022, Queen Elizabeth made a decision no mother wants to make. She stripped Andrew of his military titles and royal patronages. He could no longer use His Royal Highness in any official way. For a man who had built his identity around rank and privilege, this was devastating. Yet even then, Andrew reportedly believed he could return. He thought time would heal the damage, that the public might forgive and forget. But William and King Charles saw things differently. To them, Andrew had become a risk the monarchy could no longer afford. His name carried weight, but not the kind the crown needed. While William focused on building a future grounded in duty and respect, Andrew's behavior stood as a reminder of the past, the scandals, the arrogance, the refusal to change. And then came the comment about Catherine. That was the final straw. It revealed not just jealousy, but a complete lack of respect for the role she played and the future she represented. For William, it wasn't just an insult to his wife, it was an insult to the throne itself. Sources close to the family say William made his position clear in private. Andrew would not return to public duties, not while William had a voice. And when William becomes king, Andrew will remain firmly on the outside. There would be no second chances, no quiet returns, no redemptions. But while William drew a hard line, King Charles found himself caught between two impossible roles: brother and king. As Andrew's older brother, Charles still felt a personal connection. They shared a childhood, memories, and a complicated family history. There were moments when Charles offered quiet support, even providing financial help when Andrew faced a settlement in the United States. The bond between brothers hadn't entirely disappeared. Yet as king, Charles faced a different reality. Andrew's scandals had damaged the crown's reputation, and the public expected accountability.
The Monday morning headlines say it all. Prince Andrew's attempt to explain his friendship with accused trafficker Jeffrey Epstein backfiring.
You've been on his private plane.
Yes.
Trust is everything for a monarchy, and once broken, it's nearly impossible to rebuild. Charles knew that any attempt to bring Andrew back into the fold would invite fresh criticism and undermine the institution he was sworn to protect. This is where Charles and William sometimes clashed. Charles believed in family unity, in finding ways to balance loyalty with responsibility. He had lived through decades of division within his own household, and he didn't want to repeat those mistakes. Because of that, he leaned toward leniency with Andrew, hoping there might be a way to keep him close without bringing him back into public view. William, however, saw no room for compromise. For him, Andrew's return in any capacity would weaken the monarchy and invite disaster. The institution depended on trust, and Andrew had lost that trust beyond repair. There was no middle ground, no quiet role Andrew could fill without causing damage. In William's mind, protecting the crown meant keeping Andrew out, permanently. This tension played out in subtle but telling ways. At Catherine's Together at Christmas carol service in 2024, Andrew and Sarah Ferguson were left off the guest list. Officially, it was explained as a matter of space and focus, but everyone understood the real message. William and Catherine didn't want Andrew at an event built around unity, kindness, and trust. Then, at Easter 2025, Andrew attended a church service at Windsor. Cameras captured his arrival, but William and Catherine were absent. Some saw it as coincidence. Others recognized it as a statement. William was choosing not to stand beside his uncle in front of the nation. These small decisions, while quiet, built into something much larger. Charles worked to balance family loyalty with his duty as king. William, as heir, was drawing a harder line for the future, making it clear what would and wouldn't be tolerated. And Andrew, despite everything, seemed to hold on to a small hope that redemption might still be possible. But what he did next destroyed any chance he had left. The funeral that changed everything.
Let me show you the outside of Buckingham Palace, where the flag is lowered, as it's been announced that the Duchess of Kent, the cousin of Queen Elizabeth and wife of the Duke of Kent, has died. She was 92.
September 16, 2025 started like any other solemn royal occasion. Westminster Cathedral stood quietly in the early morning light, its ancient stone walls reflecting the weight of the day. The streets nearby were lined with people who had come to pay their respects to the Duchess of Kent, a woman who had lived a life of quiet service and deep faith. The crowd wasn't as large as it had been for other royal funerals, but the sense of loss was real. Inside the cathedral, Everything was arranged with careful precision. Dark floral arrangements filled the aisles, simple but elegant. The organ played soft notes as guests entered, their footsteps quiet on the stone floors. The air smelled faintly of flowers and candle wax, carrying a sense of calm mixed with sadness. Among the attendees were members of the royal family. King Charles III sat at the front. Queen Camilla was absent due to illness, leaving Princess Anne nearby, her posture upright, her expression steady. The service began with scripture readings and hymns sung by the choir, filling the space with reverence. Then came Prince William and Catherine. William walked with his familiar calm, greeting those nearby with quiet respect. Catherine followed, graceful in a simple black coat dress and a hat with a short veil. The silence that fell as they entered reminded everyone of their presence and importance. Together, they moved with care, each step deliberate. But then came the arrival that surprised many: Prince Andrew and his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson. Nobody expected them. Both had stepped back from royal duties years ago and had been living quietly ever since, much like Prince Harry after 2020. Their presence caught people off guard, but the service continued as expected. Prayers were spoken, hymns were sung, and moments of reflection passed in silence. The Duchess's favorite hymn, Ave Verum Corpus, was played, and guests bowed their heads. But while most remained in quiet reflection, something was off. Andrew was seen staring at others, including Catherine, with what some described as a faint smirk. This wasn't just disrespectful to the family. It was a disregard for the late Duchess herself, a woman who had dedicated her entire life to service and faith. Yet at that moment, everything seemed controlled on the surface. But beneath that control, tension was building. As the service progressed, Andrew seemed to try engaging with several family members. He leaned forward slightly, attempting small gestures or words. But nobody responded. Heads stayed bowed, eyes remained forward. The usual polite nods or small smiles that might have greeted a distant relative were completely absent. It was clear his presence was unwelcome, or at least that others were unwilling to encourage any interaction. Sarah, standing beside him, occasionally offered a quiet word or a smile, trying to ease the awkwardness. But it had little effect. The distance between Andrew and the rest of the family seemed to widen with each passing minute. Even when he tried to whisper to a nearby cousin or offer a handshake, he was met with polite avoidance. It was subtle, but in the carefully orchestrated atmosphere of the funeral, it was impossible to miss. Andrew's gaze drifted frequently, searching for any sign of acknowledgement. His eyes at times lingered a little too long on those around him, revealing a mixture of frustration and perhaps a desire to assert himself. And as the service neared its final moments, Andrew began to move slightly, positioning himself in a way that made it clear he was preparing to approach someone specific. That person was Prince William. As the final hymn ended and the congregation began to rise for the closing prayers, Andrew edged closer to the aisle where William and Catherine were standing. His steps were small and deliberate, as though he was testing the ground with each movement. Sarah followed just a pace behind, her face composed, but her eyes seemed to notice the unease already forming. William stood tall beside Catherine, his hands resting in front of him, his gaze fixed straight ahead. Catherine mirrored his calmness, her black veil slightly covering her face, giving her a quiet strength. Andrew leaned slightly toward William, as if he wanted to say something, but William gave him no chance. His face stayed firm. His eyes never moved. The message was clear without a single word. William did not look at him. He did not nod. He gave nothing. Anyone close enough could see what was happening. Catherine stayed steady at William's side. She didn't turn to Andrew, but her presence supported her husband's decision completely. It was clear she stood with William entirely. Andrew shifted again, edging closer, perhaps hoping for even the smallest response. but it never came. William remained still, and Catherine followed his lead. The silence was sharper than any spoken rejection. Those nearby felt the tension. It was rare to see such strain between senior royals in public, especially during a funeral. Yet in that quiet cathedral, the divide could not be missed. As the service ended, the coffin of the Duchess of Kent was carried slowly down the aisle. The organ played its final notes, echoing through the great stone arches. The royal family rose and began their solemn walk behind the coffin. William placed a hand gently on Catherine's back, guiding her with calm assurance. Together, they moved in step, steady and united. Behind them, Andrew and Sarah Ferguson followed. The space between them was small, but the meaning was heavy. Observers noticed everything: the lack of interaction, the silence, the distance. All of it spoke louder than words. The rift between uncle and nephew was on full display, but that wasn't all. After the funeral, many expected Andrew to leave quietly, perhaps even to offer an apology for his behavior. But there was none. Instead, royal watchers spotted him later that day, leaving his home in a Range Rover, making his first public appearance since the funeral. This move sent shockwaves through royal circles. It wasn't just the silence that upset people. It was the combination of his attendance at the funeral, his lack of remorse, and his bold reappearance. The act struck many as disrespectful, both to the late Duchess and to the traditions of the monarchy. A life of service versus a legacy of scandal. To truly understand how insulting Andrew's actions were, we need to look at the woman being honored that day. Catherine Lucy Mary Worsley was born on February 22, 1933, at Hovingham Hall in Yorkshire. Her family was part of the old English gentry. They had land, tradition, and respect, but they were not royals. Life at Hovingham was calm, close to nature, and full of music. As a child, Catherine showed a gentle spirit. She loved playing piano and violin, and her teachers often said she had real talent. While other children dreamed of glamour, Catherine found joy in simple things: long walks, music practice, and family dinners. That quiet nature never left her. Catherine went to Queen Margaret's School in York, where she worked hard. Later, she studied to become a teacher in Oxford. Teaching wasn't just a career for her. It was a way to help children believe in themselves. Even at that young age, she wanted to make a difference. Her life changed forever in 1961 when she married Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, a cousin of Queen Elizabeth II. Their wedding at York Minster was big news across the country.
York Minster, the greatest cathedral church in the kingdom, has not seen a royal wedding for 633 years.
It was even televised, making it the first royal wedding broadcast after the war. Catherine became the Duchess of Kent, stepping into a life of duty and tradition. At first, she did what was expected. She attended royal events, opened hospitals, and supported charities. But it soon became clear she was different from many other royals. She didn't enjoy the spotlight. She was shy, humble, and preferred smaller gatherings where she could speak to people one-on-one. The Duchess of Kent often visited schools, sitting with children, asking about their dreams, and encouraging them to try music. She wasn't the type of royal to give a quick speech and leave. She listened, she cared, and people remembered her warmth. One of the most important moments in her life came in 1994 when she converted to Roman Catholicism. This was a huge step. The royal family had been tied to the Church of England for centuries. For a senior royal to join the Catholic Church hadn't happened in over 400 years. But Catherine did it quietly. She didn't make a scene or hold a press conference. She simply followed her heart. For her, faith was personal, not political. 2 years later, in 1996, she made another surprising decision. Catherine stepped back from royal duties. But instead of traveling the world for events, she went into classrooms in Hull, one of the poorer parts of England, and worked as a music teacher. There, she wasn't Her Royal Highness. She was simply Mrs. Kent. The children often didn't know who she was. They only saw a kind woman who believed every child could sing. She formed choirs, encouraged students to play instruments, and gave time to those who lacked confidence. She blended into school life so naturally that most parents had no idea their children were being taught by a duchess. In 2002, Catherine went even further. She stopped using her Royal Highness title. This was almost unheard of. Most royals hold on to their styles and titles tightly. Catherine gave hers up willingly. She wanted to live simply, without the weight of formality. Out of her teaching experience came one of her greatest achievements, the founding of Future Talent in 2004. This charity helped children from poor backgrounds who had musical ability but no money for instruments or lessons. Many of the young people supported by Future Talent went on to become professional musicians. They often spoke about how the Duchess believed in them when no one else did. Her work wasn't about fame. She rarely gave interviews. She didn't try to appear glamorous. She worked quietly behind the scenes, changing lives through small acts of kindness. Her marriage to the Duke of Kent faced its own challenges. They grew apart over the years, but she never spoke badly about him. She remained loyal, always keeping her private life private. That discretion was part of what made her different. What made the Duchess of Kent stand out wasn't scandal, it was the complete lack of it. At a time when the royal family often found itself in trouble, affairs, divorces, public fights, she never caused embarrassment. Instead, she showed another way to live as a royal, with humility and service. The difference between the Duchess of Kent and Prince Andrew couldn't be more striking. She chose humility over privilege, stepping away from titles and royal duties to live quietly and teach music in Hull. She walked away from power and status, yet earned respect that never left her. Andrew did the opposite. He clung to position until it was stripped from him. Andrew's reputation collapsed under the weight of scandals, from his ties to Jeffrey Epstein, to the damaging interview that exposed arrogance instead of accountability, to the legal settlement that followed. Where the Duchess slipped into ordinary life with dignity, Andrew dragged the royal name into controversy. This contrast mattered at her funeral. On a day meant for reverence, Andrew's behavior, the staring, the faint smirks, the failed attempts to push into conversations, became an insult not just to his nephew and Catherine, but to the very woman being laid to rest. She had lived a life of quiet service. He had lived one of constant scandal. To many watching, his conduct was more than disrespectful. It was shameful. And this is why Prince William's reaction was so firm. He wasn't only standing by his wife in the face of Andrew's cold stare. He was defending the legacy of the Duchess, a woman who, through sacrifice and humility, strengthened the royal family's reputation at a time when others weakened it. In the House of Windsor, legacy is everything. The Duchess left behind a legacy of service, compassion, and faith. Andrew, by contrast, has left behind a trail of scandal, mistrust, and division. So when William refused even to acknowledge his uncle at the funeral, the meaning was crystal clear. He was drawing a line. Andrew's actions weren't just disrespectful. They dishonored a woman whose life had been better, nobler, and more devoted than his. In that moment, William stood twice, once as a husband protecting Catherine, and once as the heir defending a woman who had spent her life shaping the royal family for good. What happened at Westminster Cathedral on September 16, 2025, wasn't just a moment of tension between two royals. It was a turning point. Prince William's refusal to acknowledge Prince Andrew sent a message that will echo through the royal family for years to come. There will be no return for Andrew, no quiet comeback, no redemption arc. The line has been drawn, and it will not be crossed. William's actions that day showed the kind of king he will one day become. Firm, protective, and unafraid to defend what matters most. He stood by his wife. He honored the memory of a woman who gave her life to service. And he made it clear that the future of the monarchy will not be built on scandal, but on dignity. So what do you think about this royal feud? Do you believe William made the right choice? Or should the royal family have found a way to bring Andrew back into the fold? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this story as shocking as William and Queen Catherine walk forward together, not just into a new reign, but into history. Diplomatic debut and international influence. Queen Catherine's new role, though focused on family and national matters, quickly gained international weight. Within a month of the proclamation, she accompanied King William on a state visit to Canada, marking her first official appearance as a sovereign decision-maker. The itinerary, once strictly ceremonial, now included high-level meetings with provincial leaders, discussions on climate resilience, and panels on youth empowerment. During one such panel in Toronto, Catherine delivered a keynote address that captivated both attendees and international observers. Speaking without notes, she emphasized the value of education in shaping leadership and empathy in a divided world. We must teach our children not just how to succeed, but how to lead with kindness, she said, drawing thunderous applause. Analysts and journalists commented on how Catherine's diplomacy echoed both the late Queen Elizabeth's quiet strength and Diana's emotional intelligence. American media, typically skeptical of royal protocol, declared her the most relevant monarch of the modern age. Behind closed doors, her presence in diplomatic strategy sessions began shifting the tone. Ambassadors noted her preparation and command of policy details. Commonwealth leaders, especially from Barbados and New Zealand, initiated deeper dialogue about monarchical relevance. Catherine, rather than resist these conversations, welcomed them. A monarchy that does not evolve risks becoming a memory, she told a group of Caribbean diplomats. William and Catherine agreed. Relevance must be earned, not inherited. Palace reforms and public response. Meanwhile, sweeping reforms within the palace reflected this new ethos. Staff training expanded to include mental health literacy and cultural competency. Junior royals took on more specialized roles, including climate research, refugee advocacy, and sustainable agriculture. Redundant ceremonial duties were cut, replaced with community-centered engagements. For the first time in history, the royal household published an annual financial transparency report detailing expenditures, donations, and impact assessments. The move, championed by Queen Catherine, was lauded by Parliament and the press. Her second initiative followed quickly. The Future Foundations, a nationwide mentorship network linking underprivileged youth to professionals in medicine, law, and the arts. Over 300,000 volunteers signed up within weeks. Catherine's belief in human potential, regardless of background, drove its success. This proactive leadership began to reshape public perception. Critics who once called her too polished now saw her as powerful. Opinion columns debated whether the UK was witnessing the birth of a dual monarchy, a co-reign in all but name. Children's books and school projects began featuring Queen Catherine as a symbol of intelligence and grace. Toy stores sold dolls modeled after her signature look, navy dresses, walking boots, and a notebook always tucked under one arm. The monarchy wasn't just surviving, it was inspiring again. By the end of 2025, a special edition of The Times summarized it best. What began as a farewell has become a foundation. King William may wear the crown, but Queen Catherine is building the kingdom. Still, the road ahead was not without challenges. Republican sentiment remained strong in parts of Scotland and Wales. Anti-monarchist protests occasionally flared during royal visits, but rather than avoid them, Catherine insisted on listening. In Cardiff, during one such visit, she spent an hour with protest leaders in a community hall.
Duke and Duchess of Cambridge now, they're in the Caribbean this week, but the trip hasn't got off to the smoothest start. They were forced to cancel a visit to a cocoa farm in Belize after protests from villagers there.
Your voices matter, she said. Even when you question the institution, you remind us why we must do better. The meeting didn't end the protests, but it earned respect. Within the palace, a new protocol emerged: transparency first. All speeches, press statements, and major events were pre-reviewed by a civilian advisory board, a radical departure from royal tradition. The personal cost and private triumphs. Of course, all this came at personal cost. The scrutiny was relentless. Tabloids oscillated between praise and intrusion. Online trolls dissected every appearance. The pressure mounted, but Catherine remained composed. She credited her strength to her family, particularly her children. "Every night they remind me why this matters," she told a confidant. "If we want to change the world they inherit, we must act now." William, too, felt the strain. Balancing his grief, his duties, and his new role was daunting. But he leaned on Catherine, as he always had. Their bond, forged over decades, became their most powerful shield. The couple began holding weekly roundtables with staff, advisors, and trusted friends. These informal gatherings, dubbed Tuesday Firesides, became incubators for policy ideas, public projects, and internal morale. For many in the palace, it felt like working in a startup, intense but invigorating. By Christmas, the family returned to Sandringham for a quieter holiday. George helped carve the turkey. Charlotte led a carol choir. Louis, ever the free spirit, built an ice fortress with local children. And when the family posed for their holiday photo, the world saw not a staged tableau, but something genuine. A royal family evolving in real time. On New Year's Day 2026, King William released a statement formally acknowledging what had become reality: a shared monarchy. "Though the crown rests upon my head," he wrote, "its weight is borne by two. Catherine is not simply my queen. She is my counterpart in duty, heart, and vision." The declaration stunned royal historians. Never before had a British monarch so openly affirmed equality in governance. It was symbolic. It was seismic. Immediately, constitutional scholars convened. Could the royal charter be amended? Should there be a new title for Catherine, Queen Regent, co-sovereign? Catherine herself dismissed the need for labels. "Call it what you like," she told a journalist. "I call it partnership." In March, a new royal charter was quietly drafted, recognizing the sovereign's consort as a standing advisor with formal influence. It passed with broad parliamentary support. The monarchy had officially entered a new age. And so, as the reign of King William and Queen Catherine gained momentum, Britain found itself not just led, but inspired. A nation reimagined, a monarchy reborn, a love story still being written, reform, resistance, and reconciliation. As the co-reign of William and Catherine solidified, its transformative impact became impossible to ignore. Buckingham Palace, once a symbol of rigid formality, now served as the epicenter of ongoing national dialogue. The gates were opened monthly for public forums, a tradition started by Catherine and modeled after her Tuesday Firesides. Citizens, from students to scientists, veterans to volunteers, were invited to speak directly with members of the royal staff. Resistance remained. Hardline traditionalists called the new reign a dilution of heritage. Protests were frequent, especially from groups that saw the monarchy as outdated or elitist. But instead of stiff-arm dismissals, Queen Catherine continued her practice of active listening. One quiet evening in Edinburgh, she held a private gathering with Republican leaders and historians, asking only that they approach her not as a monarch, but as a mother, a woman, and a citizen. "I don't expect your loyalty," she said, "only your honesty." This openness, combined with a series of successful policy-backed campaigns, including youth mental health programs, green technology investments, and early education initiatives, began to shift public opinion once again.
We haven't solved our youth mental health crisis is because we're coming at it from entirely the wrong perspective.
The monarchy's approval ratings climbed to their highest levels in over 3 decades. Polls reflected not blind allegiance, but cautious admiration. A nation seeing its royals not as idols, but as imperfect leaders trying to do better. Prince George, now in his late teens, began shadowing Catherine and William on official visits. Tall and introspective, With a sharp wit and his grandfather Charles's love of nature, he took a particular interest in climate diplomacy. Princess Charlotte, fiercely articulate and media-savvy, led her own youth initiative, Speak Loud, a media literacy project encouraging teens to challenge misinformation online. She became a beloved figure among Gen Z, blending regal confidence with unfiltered compassion. Louis, always spirited, found his calling in art and design. He spearheaded the palace's Arts Outreach Division, organizing exhibits from underrepresented communities and urban schools. Critics praised his authenticity and lack of pretense. The first royal, they joked, to attend official events in paint-stained jeans. Each child, guided but not burdened by tradition, shaped their path within the new monarchy. The final public moment. On the 20th anniversary of King Charles III's passing, the royal family unveiled a memorial garden in his honor, designed by Louis and landscaped with native wildflowers he once adored. At the ceremony, Catherine stood in a modest gown, the same shade of blue she had worn on her wedding day. William, holding her hand, read from a journal entry his father had written, "Legacy is not how long one rules, but how well one listens." The crowd stood in reverent silence. A breeze caught the garden's white rose petals and carried them across the lawns. And then, together, not from the balcony, but from the ground among their people, William and Catherine addressed the nation. Their voices, steady and entwined, echoed across history. A monarch reimagined. The story of Queen Catherine is not one of sudden ascension, but of steady evolution. Not of a throne taken, but of trust earned. She did not rewrite the monarchy overnight. She rewrote it day by day, with empathy, partnership, and an unshakable belief that service must evolve with society. Her reign, alongside King William, is more than a chapter in Britain's royal history. It is a blueprint for what leadership can become when love is its compass and the future is its cause. And so, beneath the fluttering royal standard and the shifting tides of tradition, a new kind of queen has risen. Not above her people, but beside them,